Show me an elder, and I will show you an elder who is just as messy, just as toxic as a younger person. I'll show you an elder who gossip everybody's business in town. It's a sad thing, but it's a true thing. There's some elders out here who are just as toxic as the young people around here. And the reason why they get away with it is because they elders. And we were taught as kids to always respect your elders. So they think that they're right. Even when they're not right. They think they're justified to be toxic. And they go around the community being just that, being toxic. And nobody calls them out. Nor do other elders call them out. They stick together. They pretend not to know that it's happening and just don't speak about it. Treat it as if it's not there, it's invisible. And have you ever heard of that expression, the apple don't fall too far from the tree? You show me a toxic man right now, and I'll show you a grandmama that upholds him in his wrongdoings and treat him as if he's some type of angel. I heard this story on the radio. I'm pretty sure a lot of you listen to Steve Harvey's radio station. I listen to it in the morning, leaving from work. But anyway, there was this mom who called about her son and said her son is a gigolo. But he wasn't getting money from younger women. He was dating older women. Because see, before his grandmama died, his grandmama was taking care of him. He didn't have to do nothing. And so once she died, he no longer had somebody to take care of him financially. In a way, his grandmama crippled him. So he started dating women around about his grandmama's age, and these women were taking care of him. And the mom called his Steve Harvey show complaining about it, as if Steve Harvey could do something about that. What can Steve Harvey do about it? Y'all kill me calling this man thinking he has all the answers when he really don't. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Sometimes these toxic elderly people spread their toxicity to their kids and even their grandkids. And the cycle repeats itself. This gives a lot of meaning to that saying that the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Toxic behavior can spread from generation to generation. When you look at things in the black community and you see a lot of the stuff that's going on, don't think for a minute that the elders didn't have a hand in it. Oh yeah, the elders did have a hand in what's going on in some form or fashion. Their generation was just as toxic as ours. The difference is we didn't have social media, we didn't have no technology or none of that to see some of the stuff that went on back then. And just because these people were married, like men and women were married back then, doesn't mean that they weren't toxic. I'm pretty sure a lot of these older women have lots of stories if they're willing to tell you, but they probably won't tell you because they want you to think that back then it was so nicer and it was so lovely and it couldn't be further from the truth. You had men and women back then being forced, being pressured by their families to get married. When the women would get pregnant, they would be dating a woman or whatever, or fooling around with it, and the woman would be pregnant, and both families would be pressuring them into getting married. But a lot of times they didn't want to get married; they just wanted to play the field. But they was pressured into getting married, so they was married to people that they really didn't want to be with, but they had to out of obligation. Nobody wants to talk about this part though. Everybody want to make it seem like the black community was so great back then when it really wasn't. You had the big R and the big M going on back then within the community. Most of the time it was like by people that women knew or relatives. You had husbands jumping on their wives, and the daughters would go to their mom for help, and the mom would say, oh, you married him. You got to be with him. You got to go back to him. But we don't want to talk about that. We want to pretend like that don't exist, but it does exist. And hence, that's the reason why a lot of these elders are so toxic now. A lot of this stuff I'm mentioning happened to them, and they didn't have nobody to turn to, nobody to go to. So they had to hold it in. And when you hold trauma like that in, when it does come out, it comes out in ways you don't want it to come out. Sometimes it makes you toxic. And that's why a lot of these elders are so toxic, because stuff like this was going on to them all the time. Then there are some of them who are just toxic just because they were born that way. But either way, elders are set in their ways. By the time they become elders, most of the time they don't change because they think that their way is the right way. So most of the time they don't change. They walk around the community with their toxic behaviors going unchecked. Nobody never checks them because they're elders. And there's really nothing that we can do about that. But what we can do is, while we're younger, work on ourselves and be the best version of ourselves as we can be. And try our best to be humble, and don't go around stirring drama or gossiping about people. We can't change the past. We can only change the future. But it starts in the present day. I painted this about a week ago. I tried to record it, but the camcorder wasn't working right. I started to record me painting it. It didn't work out right. But anyway, shouts out to the woman Spear for giving me inspiration. I hope y'all like it. I hope if woman Spear will run across this one day, I hope she likes it. But anyway, y'all let me know about how y'all feel about what we were talking about the elders. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share down below. Peace.